everyone, and welcome to your very favorite podcast. This is the Around the Ballpark podcast. My name is Mike Redmond. I am your host alongside my brother, Darren Redmond, my co-host. And today we're going to talk about a very historic franchise, the Kansas City Royals. And with that, today on our show, we are gracious to have Jacob on our show, and he is part of the Royals Rundown podcast. Very excited to talk about the 2024 Royals, the prospects and what's to come, what's expected this year. We know what we saw last year, but what's exciting you about what's to come in 2024? We're going to dive into that. But first and foremost, Jacob, thank you so much for being on. Maybe you can just give a quick description of yourself and what you do, and just glad to have you on here tonight.
Of course. Thank you so much for that intro, Michael. And first off, thank you for reaching out. The baseball podcast and baseball content creator community, we really lean on each other, I feel like, and we're only going to grow this sport with how much we are willing to work together and further this great sport. So again, my name is Jacob Milham. I am one half of the Royals Rundown podcast with Royals Review. I'm also the site expert over at Fansided's Kings of Kaufman, writing about all things Kansas City Royals. This is the franchise hasn't been winning on the field in quite some time, but the fan base has really taken me in. The organization has been great to work with, and I'm very much looking forward to opening day. It is that week, guys. I'm so excited. Excited.
It's something about like when it's a month away, it's like, all right, you're excited, but when those last 4 days are like a millennium, it's just, we love spring training.
So true.
Great, but we're ready to get on with the good stuff. And Darren, just quickly too, before we kind of jump into Royals talk, with that said, yes, the season's approaching, but we also kind of already started the season and then restarted and paused. It's kind of weird. What's your quick thoughts on like the whole Saul series, Darren, about that? And just in terms of, are you a fan of that being a regular season game, or should that have been an exhibition series? What do you think?
A lot to unpack there, and I'll try to make it brief. I am not a fan at all of doing it and then going back and playing practice games, but I understand why you have to do it that way. I do. I mean, I would have probably preferred it to be right now, this weekend, and then a couple of days to go right to the regular season. That would have made more sense. Now, I don't know if they couldn't get the field. I mean, seriously, or what that is, if there's other games already scheduled. But, I mean, we had it with the Mets a couple of years ago, or 25 years ago, when they went to Japan. We had it in that one. So the games are great. I enjoyed them. You might have seen my commentary. I love the small ball. I loved it. And I just loved it. And not a lot of people looking at the clock saying, at the watch, saying I want to leave. They were enjoying the game. So the first game was tight. Second game, runs were scored. Not a big fan of stopping and starting, but I kind of understand why they have to do that to expand the game. I love the game. I just love the game. And you know what? Put me in coach. I'm ready to play.
Absolutely. And so, so we'll transition now into the 2024 season, and we'll talk Kansas City Royals, of course. And so looking at the roster this season, first and foremost, there's a name on there. When you're talking about today, we're going to really hone in on the current roster. But when you think about Kansas City Royals, obviously you think of George Brett, you think of Brett Saberhagen, but you think Salvador Perez. He's a kind of a name that seems like he's just been around for like a really long time. But, to me, he's on that Mount Rushmore, now before his career is even over. So you look him in the middle of the lineup, but of course, the one person in particular, and Jacob, maybe we can start with him, is Bobby Witt Jr. What are we to expect of him? Because I know if I would have got on the ball with fantasy sports or baseball, that would have been my number one pick over anybody else. I think that highly of him, especially at that position. So maybe if you want to just dive into your analysis on him.
It has been so great as a Royals fan to have Bobby Witt Jr. and to the level of talent that he has, that he's drawing eyes from all around baseball. It's been a long time since not only the Royals had a talent at that level, but a talent that was so great, even though the team was losing badly in the win-loss column, that baseball fans just period were still tuning in to watch him, with that 30-49 season that he had. I really feel like if Ronald Acuna Jr. wasn't in the picture, that 30-49 season would have been a bigger story. But then also he's kind of he's the next big extension guy in the MLB offseason, excuse me. It's always a big gamble whenever a team extends out a player that long. He's still not 24 years old. He still has a lot of great baseball ahead of him, and he made leaps and bounds in the field. And I think that's where it got most baseball fans enraptured, is he had the raw power and he had the speed, but being able to put that speed to use in the field and making some electric throws from shortstop. It's been a great blessing to put it plainly. It's been a blessing to have Bobby Witt Jr. in a Royals uniform.
Absolutely. And one wish I had, so myself and Darren, just so you know, we are lifelong New York Mets fans.
Okay.
And so you look at the national broadcast schedule year by year, and we're always going to get those Yankees, Mets. We're going to get the Cardinals, Cubs 100 times. But for me, for the Major League Baseball to grow to that next level, we need to be focusing on those guys like Bobby Witt Jr. I know that the Kansas City Royals, and if you want to showcase them playing a top rating team, then so be it. But those are the kind of guys that are going to get people enamored as they walk by the television. They're going to stop and go, wow, and they're going to remember that name. We know who the Yankees are. We know who the Dodgers are. But I think it's time to start showcasing some of these talents. So I'm just very excited. And hopefully, somehow, some way, he gets that recognition. Hopefully, he stays in Kansas City because, there's just something to be said about just that player staying in one place. But yeah, for sure.
And it just doesn't happen as often as it once did. You talked about guys like George Brett. I mean, he played his entire professional career in Kansas City, and sure, he had his peak and then he had his decline, but he was still a pretty dang good baseball player from beginning to end. And I think folks look past his first base and designated hitter days. He was still putting the stick to work in the Royals lineup way back then.
Yes, he was. Mm-hmm.
And I think who was I thinking of? A guy like Trey Turner. Trey Turner.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
He started off with the Nationals, and what if he had stayed with the Nationals? What if he hadn't gone to Los Angeles and then over to Philly? What if the Nationals had actually given that money, given that confidence in him in the long term, and said, "You are our guy. We're hitching our wagon to you." And thankfully, that's what the Royals have done. Which for all the listeners who aren't aware, the Royals don't do this. Okay, this is not the Royals mold at all. This blew out every other contract the team has given. It just blew it out of the water. The $200+ million contract, we haven't even had $100+ million extension, free agent signing, nothing. None of that for the Royals. So this was a major monumental move, at least on grading on the Royals curve, if you will.
Yes. And so I'd like to jump into, I'll start with you, Darren, but I'd like to dive into the rotation a little bit. And then
that's it. I'm sorry to cut you off, but great lead, because that's where I wanted to go. We talk about the Royals. I mean, let's face reality. 2015 was not that long ago, and they won a championship. How did they do it? They got hot at the right time. They had good players. And I got to tell you, Seth Lugo and Michael Walker, both who played for the Mets, I'm very familiar with what they do. These are guys that could stop a losing streak. They are they're the kind of guys that I want on my team. Because you're losing 3-4 in a row. They're going to come out there and they're going to put in that lunch pail work. They're going to put in that lunch pail work. And you know what? I know that we don't go 9 anymore. We go 7.
Stop 7.
But these are guys that will get that bump, get the work done, call a good game. I mean, they are just pros. So you mix that with with Cole at the top of the pitching rotation. You're not going to lose 6 or 7 in a row. I'm sorry. I mean, as long as they stay uninjured. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you don't have those long losing streaks, you're going to be in contention. And that's all you want to do, because you got to be in it to win it. 2015 showed us that, didn't it?
Yeah, it certainly did, and like you were saying, man, it's they just got hot at the right time. And you were talking about small ball earlier on, and
Mhm.
I get it. The sabermetrics might not always agree with the ideology of small ball and how that happens, but the Royals did it, and the Royals executed it to perfection way back then.
Mhm.
I'm of the mindset that Cole Reagan's, no matter how 2024, how the offseason went, 2024 opening day, he was going to be the top guy. He was going to be the top guy in the
Right.
rotation based off what he showed. But who's going to be that 2 and 3? There's a big drop off. I'm sorry, Brady Singer hasn't lived up to expectations. He still has a good ceiling. He can still do great things, but having him as the number 2 and Jordan Lyles as your number 3, like that's just not great. So going out and getting a guy like Seth Lugo, Michael Walker, Royals
Yep.
fans are pretty familiar with Walker. Him pitching for the Cardinals for so long.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
and
I forgot about that. Good call. Good ball.
yeah, and I want to point out something else about Seth Lugo. So I'm sure you both are very aware of this. Excuse me, but everyone points to, hey, he's 34 years old, man. Like, why are you giving him a multi-year deal and things like that? Seth Lugo, he hasn't been a career starter. Like that's
That's
not
right.
been his role.
That's right. He
and
was a
it's
setup guy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy to think about the fact that he has been in the league since 2016 and he only has 641 career innings. Like he's still got a good amount of tread left on that arm, if you ask
Yep.
me.
And 34 now is not 34 even 15 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
they're working out, 365, nutrition, all these other things. Yeah, I mean, he's got tread on those tires. Absolutely.
That he does.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe I'd like to dive into the prospects next, but before we do, there was one other offseason pickup, Adam Frazier, and I want to kind of see. I know he might actually be opening day because of the injury to Michael Massey. He may split time, of course. But your thoughts on him and his role this year and how much he might be used? Is he going to be a pivotal piece, you think, for them, or what are your thoughts?
So it's I do want to say this. Adam Frazier wasn't a popular addition this offseason. I will say. While you had Seth Lugo, Michael Walker, guys like Garrett Hampson and Adam Frazier kind of had the fan base scratching their heads like, hey, why are we going out and getting this guy? And when Michael Massey went down, that shows why you go out and you get a guy like Adam Frazier, unfortunately. I think he is going to play a lot more than Royals fans want to admit. Hell, he's going to play a lot more than even I want to admit. The guy has played at least 140 games over the past 3 seasons, or excuse me, each of the last 3 seasons. So he's a workhorse player, whether that be in the corner outfield, whether that be at second base. And the Royals fan base is really excited about the fact that Nick Lofton, the number 2 prospect, is starting on the opening day roster. Now, I just got off the podcast with my co-host Jeremy Greco, and we talked about, okay, is Nick Lofton actually going to be the opening day second baseman? And we kind of both defer to Adam Frazier because Adam Frazier does have some good qualities that you want in the lower half of your lineup.
Yep.
Frankly, he does have a long track record of getting on base. And that's what you want to do to let the top of your lineup do the most damage that it can. And you know what? He showed that this spring. I get it. Spring training competition is what it is. It's not MLB competition every single time, but still walking at 15% of the time. I'll take that in my 7 or 8.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking forward to it, but it's going to be an experiment. It's going to be a journey, I feel like.
I think so. And yeah, because today, of course, was that infamous, pretty much your final cuts across the board today were made. And, us as Met fans, there were some big cuts. I mean, there was a Mark Vientos is going to finally get his opportunity. And then JD Martinez comes along and says, not so fast, buddy. But I still feel like he'll get in there, give him 10 days. Some Met piece usually falls apart by the first couple games.
Yeah.
But so he'll have a, and it's an unfortunate because he had a great spring in terms of power production, at least. And I think he's just a guy that needs to be in there every day, not just every so often. So I think that's why they have him starting in AAA.
Okay.
So kind of transitioning here into the prospects. So it's interesting. I'm a baseball guy at heart, but I have
Uh-huh.
just a love for the minor league baseball. And
Okay.
so I like to dive in, and just even if I don't recognize names sometimes, I love to dive in, like who's coming up next, especially with fantasy sports. When I'm into that, I'm like, okay, I want to get that guy on my roster before everyone else hears about him. And
Yeah.
so the Kansas City Royals are interesting because it's funny, if you look at prospect lists, there's always like, the top 10, the top 20, and you're like, oh, that guy at the top, he's great, and this and that, as you mentioned, Nick Lofton, number 2. But there's always that one person like outside of that kind of just catches your attention. And for me,
Mhm.
and it's funny that when I'm going to say, and you'll probably have some experience from what I've heard as well in your podcast, but for me, in terms, that's Walter Pennington. And
Ah,
it's funny
yes.
because if you look at the top 10 prospects, even the top 30 prospects for the Royals, nowhere to be found on that list. But for
Yeah.
some reason, I'm just drawn to that name. I don't know what it is. Just looking at lines on a paper here, but that's the guy for me. So maybe if you want to jump into that in terms of what you know about Walter, and then in terms of what other prospects that you're looking out for.
So, just to be frank, I ain't gonna lie. I try to get around and talk to some of the Royals prospects. I've been lucky enough and very grateful to have some of those players on the podcast before. I've not had a chance to chat with Walter. Not gonna lie, but gosh dang it, he had a great spring. He really did. And there was Jeremy and I were very hopeful, like, hey, there's a competition at that secondary left-handed reliever spot. Guys like Jake Brents and Josh Taylor, they're starting the season on the IL, and we thought that Walter had an outside shot. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's gonna get that shot. But man, when the guy went out there, 19.64 K over 9 over 7 1/3 innings. Like, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not really a lot, but there's like 200 or so on pitchers hitting that inning workload in the spring. And Walter Pennington quietly put up a great spring against AAA level competition, if you will. I definitely think he's a guy to watch and a person that is going to surprise the Royals fans. And we've had some good luck with surprising relievers in the past couple of years. A guy named John McMillan made the jump from Double A to the majors last year. And granted, he only pitched 4 innings, but he only gave up 1 hit and had like 8 strikeouts over those 8 innings. I mean, or 4 innings, excuse me. It's a pretty good track record for a guy
Oh,
coming up
sure.
and just getting his toes in the water. Looking at the overall prospects though, and I'm gonna take another chance to plug another Royals guy, Farm to Fountains.
Please do.
Preston Farmer's team over Farm to Fountains been doing great stuff, but he has been beating the drum for 2023 draftee Carson Roccaforte. Currently, he's sitting at 17th on MLB Pipeline's top 30. So he's down in the bottom half. You don't really expect a whole lot out of those guys, but man, this guy he's got gap to gap power. He is absolutely electric out in the field. And I get it. He's a college player. He's coming from Louisiana at Lafayette, if I'm saying that correctly. And he bullied low A pitching, and I'm very excited to see what he does in 2024. A couple other guys that I'm excited to see: Steven Zobak, a guy making the move from the bullpen to the starting relief role or starting role, excuse me. And he was pretty good. He's 23 years old. We might see him later on in this year. Pate Wilson, a speedy middle infielder. Goodness gracious. Looking forward to him. But there's you go to the top 5. There's some guy. There's a next wave of talent that's set to hit Kansas City in 2025. Guys like Caden Wallace, Ben Kudrna, Frank Mazzucato, and the Royals are set up right now to kind of, okay, we're going to take a step forward, but we're not going to compete in 2024. They're really putting some if everything goes right, if all the dominoes fall, things are looking good for 2025 if you ask me.
Yeah, and I think one person as well, and it's hard to judge that far out. There's also Blake Mitchell,
Yeah.
19 years old, but not expected till 2027. That's could change and stuff. It's always interesting to me how like a rookie, especially a catcher, but I think that's because he's gonna to be a catcher, maybe that's why he's a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But I'm not some of those guys like your Walter Pennington. I wouldn't be surprised if you kind of do a refresh on those top rankings here after his outings, and he kind of quietly just moves up on that list from obscurity.
Well, so
but-
just to grab the wheel real quick, and Darren, I want your thoughts on this. So Blake
Sure.
Mitchell's calling card is really his arm. Coming out of high school, he was folks were saying, hey, if this guy doesn't pan out as a catcher, he's got a future as a pitcher. He's got a great fastball, got a 70 grade arm behind the dish, according to MLB Pipeline. Darren, I'm curious though, with the MLB rule changes that we saw last year and the bigger bases and stuff like that, do you think that really limits a catcher's arm behind the plate?
Well, depends. I mean, I'm going to be snarky for a second. I love the question, first of all, Jacob, but you can have a gun for an arm, but if you get the ball there too soon, the second baseman has to get out of the way, or else it's interference. But I think the real thing is, can he call a game, right? And if the arm is the arm, I used to play catcher badly. The arm is great. If he's got that skill and he can do that, that's great. But it's all about calling the game, framing the pictures, those kind of things. Can he field a bunt? Can those kind of mechanics? For example, I'll give you a great example. I'm going to be old for a second. It doesn't matter who it is.
Okay.
But Todd Zeal, who played for the Cardinals and ended up playing for the Mets and played for a lot of different teams. He started as a catcher, had a great bat, but he was like he couldn't catch. He had a good arm, but he literally couldn't. He was just slow and boxy, and they ended up putting him at first. So yeah, I mean that might be able to work. I've seen that happen before.
Okay.
So that's my long-winded way of saying, especially with the new rules. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, Michael, I didn't mean
Oh,
to grab the wheel
you're
there.
okay.
I had to ask.
That's a great
good.
question. Yeah, that's a great question. And someone so young too. I mean, they jot that down on paper. You never know what that position could turn out to be. It could be because you do find a lot of those 19, 20-year-olds when you see them on the prospect list, you see multiple positions there. So what I'd like to kind of
seriously look at Jacob DeGrom, right? He was a shortstop, converted to pitcher, right? Look at Bryce Harper. He was a pitcher, converted to right fielder with a gun for an arm, and now he's in first base because of his knee. So it happens a lot of times. I mean, yeah.
And so I think
Michael.
one thing I'd love to chat about, we'll start with you, Darren, just in terms of, here at around the ballpark, we also want to dive in just a little bit into the stadium itself. And so Darren, if you would kind of just jump into Kauffman Stadium just a little bit, because we know this is their 52nd year in that stadium. We heard the rumblings about, some potential movement with that stadium and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of their history, what kind of stands out to you in terms of Kauffman Stadium and what you think about the park from what you've seen? I'm not sure if you've got to visit that park yet, but.
So I just want to digress a little bit, kind of get into this stuff that I love talking about. First of all, I would say that the Royals' home uniforms are undervalued in terms of how beautiful they are. They are spanking. And they're right up there, I'm sorry, with the Dodgers and the Red Sox. I mean, pure white, no pinstripe. I love the pinstripe on some, but they just pop. They're gorgeous. And they haven't changed them every 3 minutes. Oh, let's add this and let's add that. And stop. It's beautiful. And it goes with that stadium. And see his segue. Thank you. Tricks of kids. And then you have the light station, right? The lights in that look like a crown, and the fountains, and it is glorious. I love that stadium. I've always did. I got to tell you, I said something to Mike before we started, because he's my brother, and I said to him, I said, I love the way the stadium looks now, but I thought it was pretty with the AstroTurf. I really did. It's a gorgeous stadium. So Jacob, walk me through. Let's say it's my first day there. and I'm a nerd when it comes to stadiums. Food, views, walk Mike and I through that.
Man, it is. I will have to say, Kauffman Stadium has my favorite outfield seats.
Beautiful.
It's I know it's an odd thing, but I've been to so many ballparks, and just sometimes the outfield seats you feel so removed from the game.
Oh yeah.
And it's I get it. You go out to the outfield, you go out there to have a good time with folks, and yeah, you know, you got the baseball games in the background, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Even out there in Kauffman, though, you still feel very ingrained in the game. Seeing, you know, a home run splash into the fountains, it's absolutely great. I gotta admit, guys, it's been a little while since I've been out to Kauffman, so I can't speak to the food competently. I will say, from my understanding, though, that stadium does lack some of the Kansas City barbecue.
Oh, you need that.
And
Come on.
I know. That's why I've been saying they've added a couple of new things this offseason. So I'm hoping to hear some good reviews on opening day about those additions. But man, it is. We talked about 2015, and you know,
Right.
I know. Unfortunately, the Mets
No,
were the
bring it
victim
on.
of
No,
that.
the better team won. The better team won.
And just I remember
I was
those
shocked when the better team
crowds.
won.
Listen, we all were. We all were. And just the energy of the crowd from 2013 to 2015, it's ingrained in my childhood, or not childhood. I ain't gonna say I'm that young, but it's ingrained in like what I remember of Kansas City Royals baseball. So Kansas City, when it's a winning team, it's a baseball town. It's great. I mean, we've seen it with the Chiefs. The Chiefs are winning right now, so it's a football town, right? But back then, it was a baseball town through and through. So Kauffman Stadium is going to be missed. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be there much longer.
Great. And I'd like to, one thing I just want to throw in there, it's always fun to, so this is actually the third team in our, so far we've tackled the Colorado Rockies, we've done the Chicago Cubs. So with the Kansas City Royals here as a third team that we're kind of looking at here, I always like to just share a couple fun little facts about the stadiums. And so I just have 2 or 3 things here that are pretty awesome. Again, I had not attended the stadium yet, but there's something there, I guess, called the Little K. That's called a must visit, and it's nestled behind the left field corner. And it's a miniature Kauffman Stadium. I love that. You know, that's got to be, as a parent, like that's where the kids are going to go first, you know, before you do anything else. To me, that's what it reads off the table.
And
then
it's
also
very
they have
detailed,
the tallest.
yes,
It is. And also they have the tallest LED video display in baseball. That's pretty awesome. And then just next to behind Coors Field are the second most playable field square footage. So that's always interesting, because I always love to look at like certain things, like for example, Oakland has like their foul territory is like a football field. You know,
it's massive.
Horrible.
So now one thing I'm not sure with Kauffman Stadium, if either of you might know, with the, because like for example, I just went to Port St. Lucie to watch a Mets spring training game last week, and they actually have the netting like everywhere. So every single inning for a fan to get the ball, the guy's got to take a few steps back and just throw it up as high as he can. In Kauffman, do they have that netting like everywhere? Is it just, you know, do you know?
It's pretty much everywhere. They did. It was either 2013 or 2014. I can't remember, but like that's when they had a noticeable extension of that netting. And Darren, you might be able to tell me, was that about the same time where like that was the case around all of baseball?
Yes, and there was an unfortunate incident, and finally, people, I think, woke up. I mean, because somebody got really hurt. I mean, and it's amazing to me that it hasn't happened more often, and it's just a safety thing. And I thought that it would really be obstructive, hard to see, and this and that. But you forget it's even going on. You really, I do. At least I do. So you can't go like this anymore and say, "Give me a ball." But a little girl now doesn't have a concussion. I think. Or you know, a young man. I think you look at that. It's okay. it's okay. I do want to ask a weird question. It has nothing to do with the Royals and everything to
Okay.
do with, but you're the person to ask it. When I knew you were coming on, I was excited about it.
Ooh.
Now, have you lived in Kansas City for a long time? I'm not going to play remember when, is the reason I'm asking this. Have you lived there a long time?
No, I've not lived there a long time. Truthfully, right now I'm out in Norfolk, Virginia. This is where I'm
No.
stationed at.
Oh, beautiful. So, but I mean, the area because
Yeah.
Here's my thought. They have wonderful fan base there, a wonderful fan base. Future in there for the NHL or the NBA.
Ooh, so that was
See, I knew
yeah,
you'd be the guy to ask, right?
Listen, there is people underestimate the possible hockey fan base that is there
Yes.
in Kansas City, I think. And I don't know, like you would think that with Kansas Jayhawks right there, you would
Yes.
think that there would be more of an NBA possibility. And I still think there is. Unfortunately, back in like 2009, they flooded a lot of money into downtown trying to get either an NHL or an NBA expansion team at that time, and it didn't work out. Frankly, I couldn't tell you the ins and outs of why it didn't, but I think that quote unquote dream has kind of been abandoned for a little while.
I want them to have hockey so bad.
I think it'd be a great hockey town. I really
You
do.
think about Nashville, you got Dallas, you got the Nashville Predators, you have Chicago. I mean, you have Colorado. I mean, come on, right there.
It
Short
works.
trips.
Yes. Just going across the state from Kansas City to St. Louis against the Blues.
Oh, against
I mean,
the Blues.
come
I forgot.
on.
Look at idiot I am. I forgot about the Blues. Yeah, I mean, come on. So I got to ask another question.
Oh boy.
Last one. All right.
You have to. Yes.
Just us kids.
It's a need.
Yes. Kansas City barbecue, the best in the world.
I've been far and wide, and I
So
still
that's what I'm
gotta say
asking.
it is. I gotta say it is. I've
Every-
had barbecue
listen,
from all over the world, and I
I
still
have a
prefer
good friend
Kansas
of
City.
mine who's went there many a time, and he's one of these guys that I trust. He'll say this is good. This like I'm a pizza guy. Of course, I love New York pizza, but I tell people Chicago pizza is different, but it's delicious. He says St. Louis ribs are the best. He said there's that and everything else. Michael to block.
I like it. Well, hey Michael, what do you like in your barbecue? Do you like barbecue at all?
All things food. Put
Ooh.
me in, coach. I'm ready to eat all the time. So it's funny because at the ballpark, especially, I always thought like I want to see what like it intrigues me watching videos sometimes like, oh, this stadium has this and it looks great, but then I get there and I just want like the basic stuff, but I want to know about those things. But like,
Right.
so in terms of barbecue, I think it was the KC Smokehouse. It's called is the big hit there at Kaufman.
It's one of them. Yeah, it's one of them.
I think it was Rivals Sports.
Oh
I think.
yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't been, so I'm not sure. But no, I love me some barbecue. Absolutely, it's not like my number one, but it's usually like my number two or number three. And I think at a ball game, that's actually something I've had quite a lot. I haven't had a ball game. That just sounds amazing. Like I need to make a reservation to go right now. But
I came so close one time, but I ended up going to Cincinnati, and yeah. But I will tell you guys, and before we wrap up, because I'm boring and I have no life, because I want to just share. I share. That's what I do, And so this past Wednesday, Thursday, I went up to Boston to TD Gardens to see the Rangers, pump the Bruins. 5-2. That was a lot closer than that, couple of empty net goals. But I thought of you, Michael, because they had everybody saying, "Oh, they got these great nachos, and they got this, and you got to." And I just end up with the big foot-long hot dog. But here's the key, Michael. This is the key. Ready? The bun covered the hot dog. Right?
Yes,
right, Jacob?
it has
right?
to.
The bun has to cover the hot dog.
You can't cover the hot dog. Don't put it on the menu.
Thank you.
Couldn't agree more.
Yes. And I remember in Dodger Town, the foot long hot dog, and they tried really hard. I think they just didn't make buns that long. But and And I sound old, but like this, 15 years ago, it was less than $3 for this foot long hot dog, but they tried really hard. But now I think it's like an average hot dog price at a ballpark's like $11 easy.
About $3.
It's crazy.
$3 a bite.
Yeah.
Jacob,
And here's one
you're
thing
going.
too.
Hold on, Jacob. What are you getting? Right. Let's ask Jacob. What are you getting? You're at the ballpark.
Truthfully, I've turned into a big peanuts guy at a ball game.
Nice.
I have found
traditional.
I never understood why folks did it. You always go to the ballpark and there were the old guys in the back with their little scorebooks and the peanut shells on the ground. Now I appreciate that a hell of a lot more. Oh yeah, is that you? Is that you?
Yeah. Starting to be, yeah.
The best bar that you can set for any ballpark is their hot dog though. How do they make the dog? How do they keep the bun? And like, what do they actually have condiments ready for it? Because trust me, I've been to plenty of places just tomato or it's just ketchup and mustard. Right. No, I want some more of my dog personally.
And I could do one worse than that. So like, yes, I judge before I walk up to the concession stand. If I just see red, yellow, and green, like I know I'm probably like there's no sight of onions or sauerkraut or red onion or anything. I know I'm probably not going to get the best hot dog, but at least say the words ketchup, mustard, and relish. Like we had a Space Coast Stadium here where the Nationals had their spring training facility. It was just straight up red tub, yellow tub, and green tub, and it was just not. That was the worst hot dog in the stadium. I think anyone else that had it could agree. I remember getting one time and tripping and falling on my face, and I was like, it's not meant to be to have this hot dog. I didn't even go get another one. I was just like, that's from God. Like no hot dog today. But
oh goodness.
So I guess one thing we can, as we kind of tie this up and whatnot, just give me one thing that each of you can feel like to move baseball to that next level. What can be done? Because I feel like I have that fever from start of season to the end of the season. A lot of people keep saying like, oh, it's fun if I'm there, but just watching on TV, I just can't get involved. What can be done? Because I know they try to speed up the game this way and that way. So I'll go first, and then it'd be interesting to hear what you both say, and then we'll kind of close this thing out. For me, I'll just use an example. I've mentioned him on the show before, but in a different capacity. But Randy Arozarena, Randy Land. I think that's just it's so easy to duplicate that in different ways, but something like that, you get a shirt, you get a ticket, you get this, you get that. Just that it brings that excitement, and that's another star, and that's what we need is a star power that can draw someone to turn on a game that normally wouldn't because they can't miss that at bat. If there's no star that's being promoted, then what's going to keep the casual from watching an entire 9-inning game? They're just going to wait till the postseason to start watching if they are even going to watch. I feel like if there's that must-see personality, that's what's going to get someone hooked into. So that's for me. That's what we need is more must-see people. Get the Royals, get Colorado. They have that Nolan Jones kid that's coming up. Get these teams a little bit more exposure so people can get invested behind these young guys outside of just 8 years later when they sign with the Yankees, and now we're supposed to care about this person that we didn't even get to see for 8 years. So, Darren, what about you?
I'm gonna defer to Jacob right now. And I'll go after that. What do you say, Jacob?
Oh boy!
Yes.
And then you can close us out right after that. Okay.
So Michael, here's you talk about Randy Land, right? And there's a thing that relies on that, and it's getting people to the ballpark, right? And I think I don't want to get too back in my day who was like this. I don't want to get too much on that, but the fact is that going out to a ball game, especially a major league ball game nowadays, is very expensive.
Yes, it is.
It's very pricey. Listen, it's pricey out there in Kaufman. I don't even want to think what it's like for y'all. It's got to be astronomical to go to a Mets game sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But how you get folks to invest that money into it is you get them hooked on the product. And right now, it is very hard for some Kansas City Metro fans to find a way to watch the Kansas City Royals. Whether it be the blackouts, whether it be like the regional sports network model right now with so many cable cutters, it doesn't really work anymore. And that's just the reality of it. Now, I want to say that there was a big shift in NFL viewership once things like what's the direct TV one called? It's Sunday something. Is it Sunday Ticket?
Sunday
Is that what
Ticket,
it
yes.
is?
Yep.
Where anyone can watch any game anywhere.
Mhm.
Was it expensive? Hell yeah, it was. But you could watch any game wherever you were. And I think if MLB came out with something along those lines, whether it be their own product, are we going to make MLB TV bigger? Whether it be in conjunction with another, company, sure, however that happens. But I don't know. It's folks aren't going to go and watch a game in person if they haven't watched one from their couch before. If
Great point.
that's what I think. So I know that's a little bit of a political answer, Darren, but on
No.
you, man.
No, listen, I agree. So here's the thing, Michael. I truly believe they don't want people. They don't care. I truly believe that. I think Manfred is a horrific commission. I said that publicly for the first time a couple of days ago. I'll explain why. When you have a terrible team like the Mets had, for example, for years, and I'm not being that old guy now, right? One of the things you look forward to was seeing, because everybody gets one representative in the All-Star game. When they came out wearing their uniform, that Met uniform, it meant something. John Stearns every year, Lee Mazzell, whatever the case may be, they took that away to sell fakaka garbage jerseys, right? They just sold that garbage jersey All-Star game, batting practice, this, that. They don't care. It should not cost Jacob or Darren or Mike $60 to park a car.
Yeah.
It should not. Then towing, tolls and gas and this and that. They don't care. They don't care. Why? Because of gambling. And now you have the thing that's going on right now, which is going to blow up big, or they're going to sweep it right under the rug with Otani.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it all connects. How do you get the kid? How do you get him back? You do what we talked about. You have local stars on local television at least once a week or twice a week. You have day games on Saturday. You have the All-Star game represented. You have kids shows. That's what you do. But now, where we used to have, hey, come on, get that T-shirt. Now everybody gets one and they wrap it up and they sell it on eBay.
Yeah. It's sad but true. It's
unfortunate. I don't mean to be negative. I mean, this is a sport I love, and it hurts me that I see this and they don't care.
Baseball turned into a business.
Yep.
Yeah. And we did see he's resigning in 2029. Cannot come soon enough. Can all agree.
Right.
A 4-year warning, or a 5-year warning. Woohoo!
Yes.
I'm so confident he's gonna just go out with a bang. He's really gonna put that best foot forward. Absolutely.
So Michael, what do you think's gonna happen with, and Jacob, we're gonna ask you both. What do you think's gonna happen with Otani and this whole gambling situation? They're gonna sweep it under the rug, or what's gonna happen?
Man, I don't know. I think if this was like a smaller market where they can more control the narrative and the story, I think like it could get swept under the rug completely and we would just move on from this. But out there in Los Angeles, I mean, come on, some hard charging journalist or someone with connections is going to come up with something. So I think we're going to get a full story out of this. Now I just can't tell what is going to come of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if they go 10-12 to start the season, we're going to hear a lot more about it. If they're winning, they'll keep. We're going to extend the date of the. So I think it's going to depend on how they show up on
That's
the field.
True.
To be honest,
That's a good point.
But the fact, and again, I gamble, right? I have a gambling app right on my phone, but the fact that ESPN has their own gambling site disgusts me.
Yeah, that was weird. That was weird.
Horrible. Michael, take us home.
Will do, sir. Yes, sir. Well, this was tremendous. I don't say that like
Jacob,
this was a lot of fun. I don't know how it's been as much time as it's been gone by already. So we do have to wrap up. But thank you so much, Jacob, for I feel like we've known you for a lifetime. Like I truly honestly mean that. Like, this was a lot of fun. Just
Thanks,
great
y'all.
engagement. And I just wish you and your podcast just the best. And we'll be watching. I hope others will follow along as well. The Royals Rundown podcast. Thank you once again for jumping on, Darren.
Of course.
As always, we appreciate it. And so until we see you again around the ballpark.